everyone, and welcome back to Gutter Glitter, the podcast where I, Kirsty, read you a chapter of my memoir by the same name each week. This week, instead of reading a chapter, I sit down with my mum Tiina and my brother Ben and talk about what it was like for them when I came home after my spinal surgery and the months after, where mum was essentially my carer and we all lived in the same house together. You know, it wasn't just me that was involved in this process. It was really a family affair. Yes, I might have been the person who had the physical surgery and was recovering physically, but each and every person in the family had a reaction and a response to what was going on. It wasn't an easy time. So, yeah, we're just getting a little bit deeper into their story, their perspective of this time. The sound quality is a bit wild. We literally have Mum's cat galloping around the house in the background. She's climbing up the walls. I don't know what happened, but she just went absolutely mental, probably because she wasn't getting all of the attention in the room all of a sudden, and she made us pay for it. There are a few, bumps and pops in audio. We did our best. We're all sitting around the kitchen table and it's a little bit harder. It's 3 times harder to get the audio right when there's 3 people instead of just 1. So I hope you'll forgive us for that. But otherwise, I hope you enjoy the show and I will talk to you on the other side.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt. All right, we're good now. I just wanted to get that off my chest. I know it's been a few weeks since our last episode. And for anyone who didn't listen to it, I made a grave mistake of confusing Jonah Hill for Joseph Gordon-Levitt. There was no correction made on the podcast, which I found egregious, despite the fact that during the episode you did bring up that I might be mistaking Jonah Hill for Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yes.
And
then I was right.
Yeah.
But it's because you doubled down so much that I thought, well, no, I have to
obviously it's
leave
a different movie. Yeah. So I was talking about the movie 50-50 with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Definitely not JGL. Definitely not Jonah Hill. That's what I get for trying to be cool and use abbreviations.
How embarrassing.
But now that I've cleared that up, I feel like that's all we needed to address this episode, right? We're good. This can be the world's first 30-second podcast.
I think there are a couple other things to address that we did touch on last time, which is that as we are recording at Mum's house, as soon as we press play, naturally the cats are going to go mental. Yep. That's Gypsy. I like to call her Gypsy Rose. So
all very important to why we've gathered today. I guess the other thing is listening to the most recent episode of the podcast. Of my podcast? Yeah. You did broach the subject of how sexy my voice was. You got some all-important feedback, which I certainly appreciated.
I would just like to jump in here and say that I wasn't myself saying you have a sexy voice. And I did say in the last podcast that I hoped to have to never utter those words ever again.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, it must be conflicting for you inviting me back on, because it's like, well, I want the listeners to come and flock now that my brother and his sexy voice have joined the show once again, and in properly mic'd fashion this time.
It's disgusting. Should I leave the room? Ew, why? That's weird.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, well, you should listen to the podcast to be more up to date.
I mean, I'm with you, Mum. I also didn't recognize my voice. I hate listening to the sound of my voice.
As do I.
Yeah.
Listening to your voice.
I assumed most people were in agreement. But it seems like your listeners might be the one exception.
It's a whole 2 people that have mentioned it to me. And as I said in the last show, they're dead to me, so...
Well, that's 2 more than I've, gotten in the rest of my life. So I'll happily accept that compliment. And I am just floating this now. Is this a good business opportunity? Should I start a cameo? Ben says things.
Well, the reason that we are recording and filming this episode today has a lot to do with me trying to put your voice with your physicality for the listeners.
They can see, not only hear my beautiful voice, but they can see it on the video as well. Is that what you're getting at?
They can see your voice on the video.
Well, they can see that the face matches.
They can
the
see the
voice.
monstrosity that the voice.
I mean, you say monstrosity, I say Fabio-esque looks.
Hi guys.
You say Frankenstein's monster, I say Frankenstein's handsome creator. I haven't seen Frankenstein, but I assume that's how that worked.
Okay.
I'm just saying I'm starting a cameo if people demand it, where I can just say things like, for instance, if your name is Fiona, I could be like, hey Fiona, that's a great hat that you've got on right there, and that's a freebie if your name's Fiona and you've got a hat, and that would be like, $3 or something.
Oh, well, $3. I mean, okay.
Yeah, and you can listen to my gorgeous voice. I'm just floating the idea, like, get in touch if you like this concept.
Okay. Well, you can't get in touch through me because I will not pass the message on. So you can get in contact with my brother, Ben Moore, directly.
Perfect.
I need to move on from this because it's very upsetting in many ways. And look, if you've been following along thus far, you know that there's been enough trauma in my life to have to add more to the equation. So welcome, everybody, to episode 13. This is a little chat with my mum and my brother, Tiina and Ben. You've heard us all gather around before, and we talked. People seem to enjoy the previous chat that we had, and I thought we'd try it again. See how we go discussing. I've just released chapter, I want to say 7. Help, I'm Alive. This is when I return home post spinal surgery, and I just wanted to get your views on it because obviously my view is like screaming agony and praying for death. Mum, you took care of me throughout my recovery. You took time off work as carers leave. What was it like for you having to take care of me and seeing me directly after the surgery? Any of those experiences? And yes, that is still Gypsy Rose going mental in the background.
Which is providing some much needed levity to a heated situation.
What was most traumatic was seeing you in ICU, I think. And I know you weren't there for very long, but that was certainly a feeling of helplessness because you were in a lot of pain and you had one-on-one attention, but you were not in the ward yet and were not really alert at all. So that was definitely a difficult time. Once you were in the ward, I think you were improving day by day, but you were still in a lot of pain. And I remember at some point you were frustrated because the young man who had had the same operation as you did, which was unusual in itself, that you were in the same hospital and that you had the same condition, was very, very pleased to be mobile quite quickly. And that was frustrating for you and also incomprehensible, I think.
Yeah, because he even said, and look, our tumours were in different places and who knows what kind of differences we both had in severity or whatever. But I think he said they got him up and standing day 1. And I was just like, I couldn't sit up for 4 days. Like they didn't even attempt that with me for 4 days. And then when they suggested it, I thought they were insane. Because that was like the hardest thing in the world to comprehend how to sit up after you've been split open. And he was like surfing after a month again. Like he was a big surfer. And I'm pretty sure he said after a month. And again, like I couldn't walk at that time. So it was frustrating to see somebody, you know, get better and healthier much quicker than you and not know why. And I don't know. I mean, obviously I wanted my life back, but it was such a weird feeling because it sort of felt like I was failing and losing. Like, not that it was a competition, but I just thought, you know, you see somebody with this very rare spinal tumor that's around the same age as you, recovering at a certain pace, and they're basically living their life again. And I was confused and devastated why I didn't have that same experience.
Well, I mean, I don't know why you didn't have the same experience, but I do know you had a rib removed. So you really had two surgeries in a way. You had a rib removed to, I don't know, consolidate your back somehow? Or?
Yeah, they created, I think I've already said this in the chapter, but they ground down that bone to create like a bone dust, and then put it in a cage in my back to create a new vertebra, and then that remodeled into kind of a new sturdy bone. And I don't know, he may have had the same thing there, because you can't leave an empty space in your spine. But I do think probably because my tumor was at lung height and they had to come around the front and decompress my lung, deflate my lung is, you know, probably adds an extra layer of healing that needs to go on. Who knows? But yeah, I do remember the frustration you're talking about. And you reminded me this, and I haven't put it in the book because I hadn't remembered how rare this condition was, and especially in the place that it was.
To my knowledge at the time, which was 10 years ago, there had only been 25 cases in Australia of giant cell tumor. And I think, I'm not sure how many of them were in young people. For some reason, it's much more prevalent in Japan. Now, whether that was because of the population, but I got the impression that the surgeon was almost sort of giving us the option, if we wanted a surgeon that had a lot more experience with giant cell tumor, that we had an option of sort of choosing a surgeon in Japan that possibly had done 200 surgeries as opposed to the half dozen that he had done.
No, I'm learning all of this at the same time.
Yeah, right. I had no idea about that.
Just to back up a second, did you have a rib removed, or are you talking about this?
Yeah.
Okay, see, I didn't even know that.
I had two removed, actually.
I mean, you can't be unbalanced.
You didn't know that?
No.
Okay, so what they did...
Two removed.
Well, yeah, because one of them, you guys were even there. I knew you didn't.
Look, I had a lot going on as well. Stay tuned for my book.
I knew when you walked in and neither of you shed a tear when I was heading off into the surgery that you just didn't even care about me.
Maybe if you just opened up once in a while.
That's all I do.
That's true.
I'm literally an open book. So the tumor had eaten the entire vertebra and wrapped around the spinal cord. I hope you know that.
Yeah, that part I've got
that
down.
part you know.
Yeah.
But it had also started to eat into my left rib a little bit. So they had to take out that rib because that was infected. And then that is just an empty space because it doesn't matter. And then they had to remove a rib from up higher, like the second rib at the, you know, kind of the trapezius area in my upper back. And that's where they ground down the bone from to create my new little vertebra.
You're literally, what's it? Grind my bones to make my ribs.
Bread.
I mean, we can update the expression a little bit.
Grind my bones to make my ribs.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's cool. Also, listening to the most recent episode, I didn't realize that the surgery was kind of not necessary.
Did you not?
No.
But there's no way to know that until they go in, right?
Yeah, well, that was kind of my question.
Yeah.
It's like they said that maybe it could have just been the outside of the tumor that calcified, or whatever you want to call it.
Or maybe it was the denosumab that stopped the tumor from...
That's what they suspected. But yeah, that was a really fucked moment. Like, you were in the room with me when he told me that, from my memory.
Yeah, I don't think I processed that at the time.
Well, that was kind of my question. Like, when the doctor comes in, you make it sound like in the chapter he's sweating bullets, like he's delivering bad news.
Yeah.
But I think, like, I would have been very confused when he's like, we didn't find the tumor. I'd be like, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Because it's like, well, okay, maybe the surgery was unnecessary, but also, am I cured?
Well, there's only, with this type of tumour, there was only a 2% chance that it would come back after a surgery anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not like, it's not malignant. It wouldn't have spread to my other cells and other parts of my body. They were worried about it because it could encroach on my lungs, and that would have been a bigger issue. But the bone itself, like, it wasn't going to spread into my bloodstream or anything like that. I was annoyed because, to put it lightly, because it's the most extraordinary pain, physical pain I've ever experienced in my entire life, especially at 21 or 23 by then. And he was basically just telling me that I may not have needed to experience it.
But also, like, there's, I guess, the good news, like, even if it wasn't going to come back, or like highly unlikely to come back, he didn't say, oh, we couldn't get it all. It's like, hey, it's gone, like, for better or worse.
I wasn't thinking about that.
You were just like, you were like, well, yeah, it better be gone, and why did you cut me open?
Yeah,
fair enough.
I was just like blind rage.
But if there was infection that had spread to the rib, and it
wasn't infection, it was more tumour.
I see. Well, I didn't realize that had been the case either. So there was no way of knowing, actually, if the tumor was going to continue eating away at that rib, or whether, it had been there forever and it had just stopped.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What he said, and I'm choosing to believe this because otherwise, I'll just be grumpy forever that he performed an unnecessary surgery, is that had I come off the denosumab, that it would have reversed and everything would have come back. Because that's what he was saying, that if it had been something small, like a toe or a finger, that, you could test it on.
Yeah.
Without it being too serious, they would have stopped the denosumab and seen if it did come back, so that they could avoid doing a surgery. But because it was in such a dangerous place, they didn't want to risk it. That's
right. And I can remember him being really concerned because of the location of where it was and how fragile the bone structure was, that the example he kept coming back to was if you were in a car accident, that the spinal cord could easily have been severed and he would have been incapacitated because there was so little support there at the time.
Yeah.
So do you know, like, they cut you open and poked around a little bit. Did they do anything while they're there? Or it's just...
they cut it out. What do you mean?
Oh, and they built the cage to give support as well, and they put in 10-inch rods.
Right, so they would have had to do that regardless.
Well, I mean, that I don't know. I don't know if it would have shown up on I can't remember. I'm assuming they did scans up until the point of the surgery, but I don't know if they could see that it had fully calcified through. I don't know. I mean, they would have. I don't imagine they could have just. But
just say they did know. They would have still had to do a surgery, right?
Yeah, but it would have been a lot less invasive.
I see.
It was basically carpentry. I don't know if you remember seeing the x-rays. But
Yeah, definitely.
When the doctor showed us the x-rays, he also showed us x-rays of surgeries he'd done before. And, I mean, we're talking about titanium, but they could have been steel or iron or anything. I mean, they looked like big, bulky rods with screws on the end.
Well, you mean the after scans?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they, it just looked like carpentry.
Yeah.
It's a pretty, it was a 10-hour operation and there's a huge amount of skill involved. I'm not denying that at all. But what was actually happening was quite a crude process.
Mm. Yeah. Disgusting. I can't believe you're learning all of this for the first time.
I mean, yeah, I guess it's a good reason to write a book, I suppose.
I kind of thought like you guys were all chatting about it,
No, we were
between yourselves.
We were just looking after ourselves. I think I probably just went inward.
Yeah.
And I was looking after you, and I was just hoping for day by day improvement.
But you had a job to do, so that might have, did that make it easier, do you think, or to like compartmentalize?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I do remember you would have come home around the middle of April, so it was probably Easter holidays. Mm-hmm. In and around Easter holidays, so it was possible for me to take the Easter holidays 2 week, and I think I took an extra one as well, as you said. So I wanted to be home for 3 or 4 weeks after your surgery, and so really it was about just focusing on one thing at a time. I was able to
I thought you took months off.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. But Dad was working from home a lot of the time then, and Ben was still living at home. So it's not like we were abandoning you on your own. And your partner was visiting you every day as well.
Every other day. But
every other day. I was going to say that at first. But I don't think I was ever like fully left alone, and you definitely made sure that I was able to, walk to the toilet by myself and get meds and get food and stuff before you left. That's why I feel like I thought you were home for like 3 months, but I could be wrong. It's a blurry time. Sorry, I'm like mind blown that you guys didn't even like talk amongst yourselves.
I mean, we obviously did. I just obviously got not every single detail. Sure. And, I was around for like bits and pieces when the doctors were talking, but certainly nowhere near as much as you guys.
Yeah.
But at the end of the chapter, you're talking about Dad's role at the house while you're being looked after, and you're kind of saying that you wished he was being there for you a bit more. But I think that like kind of plays into it. It's like, did you actually ask him for help in like, any way, or did you kind of just assume he was coping in his own way? Because I think like a lot of it is like, it's easy to assume that we have shared every detail with each other. But like from my perspective, I kind of see it the other way. It's like, maybe she would like ask if she needed something. And so we also want to, not be bothering you, or like if you need to, just rest or have some privacy or something. Like it's like a fine line to balance, you never know what other people are thinking.
but you know that I'm very needy.
Which is why I kept you on a constant supply of celebrity rehab episodes.
Yeah,
and stuff.
that was much appreciated.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, Dad was the one who suggested we move your bed into the lounge room.
No, I know, and I
so you
appreciate
could see the
that.
birds and had the bird feeder and so that you were in the middle of things
Yeah.
and not isolated from the rest of the house, which I thought was a great idea.
It made a huge difference.
And it didn't mean that you had to be there all the time, but it did mean that, you were, with the family,
Yeah.
know, that was around, and that you could see nature and you could watch TV in comfort.
I don't know if I asked. I remember prior to the surgery discussing a lot of the Gawler Foundation food stuff that I'd learnt, and hoping that you would all take it on board to help with food prep and stuff. I know that because I didn't want everything to fall on Mum, and it did. Naturally, that's just how the cookie crumbles for mums. But fuck the patriarchy. But it was, but then obviously once I'd had the surgery, I didn't want to eat a vegan diet. I literally just wanted bone building, muscle building food. I remember all I wanted was mashed potatoes and meat.
Yep.
But yeah, I suppose that's a good question for me to, or at least a good way for me to think about how he was, because it did make me sad. And I remember you feeling sad as well. We would talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, that was my main takeaway from that section of the chapter, which was it's a lot of speculation, I guess, on your part. But it's so easy to be well, of course, if I was in their shoes, this is what I would be doing. But just because something seems obvious to you, it doesn't necessarily mean that's obvious to the other person.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
No, but you have to remember she was carrying around a shopping bag full of drugs, right? At that time, from room to room, if she was going back to her own room, to the lounge room. That was a huge amount of medication that you were on for a long time. So you slept a lot, and it didn't necessarily feel like chatting, but you were very, very aware of your pain and when your next dose was going to be available to you.
Yeah. That was basically all you could focus on, because, sleep was the only relief from pain. And even the amount of painkillers I was on, plus ice and everything, it didn't touch the sides of the amount of pain. It was, I honestly, and I said this in either this chapter or the chapter before, I did not know humans could have experienced that amount of pain and not go into shock or not pass out, because I always I remember being a child and you hear stuff on the news or whatever, and the only way that adults kind of soothe you from, if you got in a massive car accident or something, they're oh, well, that's okay, your body would go into shock anyway, you wouldn't feel it. And I was oh, cool, I don't have to worry about excruciating pain. Sorry if anyone listening is yet to experience that.
You're just giving them a new fear.
Yeah, you feel it. You can feel it. And it sucks.
I did want to go back to the previous episode. Just something minor that I felt was left out of the book.
Yeah.
That I texted you about while I was listening to the podcast. You talk about a story where you and Sam were exploring a creek, and there's a creature in the river. Yeah. It scares the shit out of you. And I was you left me hanging when I was listening to that chapter. I'm what was in the creek?
Yeah, so I think it was a moray eel.
It's so freaky.
Which I didn't know, and I still don't know if we actually have them in Australia. I think, Mum, you told me once that you think we do.
Well, we have eels. I'm not sure exactly which.
Whatever it was,
yeah.
it was
we
yellow.
would have eels, and we would definitely have eels in rivers in country.
Oof.
Yeah,
it
places.
was so scary. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not talking about these cute eels that we got to like look at during lockdown when they were worried about the eels getting shy.
What?
Do you guys not know about
I
this?
was not on the same social media circles as you,
I
I
love
guess.
the news, I think. So at like aquariums and stuff, eels they're very shy animals apparently.
Okay.
And because they weren't used to like people weren't coming in and all that, they started just to like, when people were allowed to come to the aquariums again. No, sorry, I'll backtrack. They were worried, the people that, look after the eels were worried that they would be hiding when they suddenly started to see people again.
Because they've gotten used to like just the privacy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they would put like, it's so ridiculous. Makes you wonder what other ridiculous things happened. They would put like iPads and stuff in front of the eel tanks so people could just pop in and say hi to the eels and watch them and
like a
talk to-
webcam or something.
Yeah. Like
Okay.
outside all the eel tanks, and so people could just like watch eels and eels could watch humans and they wouldn't like freak out next time they saw a real life human walking past. And these are like I hate eels. I think they're disgusting. But these were like cute little skinny eels, like more like a little like worm, and just not like gnashing, horrifying teeth with like lumps on their heads and like,
Well, it certainly sounds like a moray eel.
it was terrible. Like if it had gotten hold of a toe, it would have been able to bite it off. It was horrific.
Okay.
And it scared the living shit out of me.
And it's just like what, in a creek?
It was just
Yeah, that's where they live.
by
That's where
the
they
bloody
live.
river,
Yeah,
trying to forget about the imminent death around me, and there it was staring me back in the face.
Okay.
People make eel traps in rivers even now because that's
Because they're
where they sort of
disgusting and they deserve to die.
and smoked they taste delicious.
Yeah, I wish it is a shame because once I discovered eel sushi, I was like, oh, this is really yummy. But I can't eat it now because...
Really? I thought you'd have like no qualms about eating
I know,
it. 'Cause you're
it
like,
should
well,
go the other way around.
I'm getting vengeance on that eel.
Yes, who's doing the gnashing now?
Again, these are words of wisdom that I'm going to hold on to forever.
No, I saw the video during lockdown of, I think they brought like a donkey or like a pony or something around the zoo to like look at the animals in the aquarium, because it's like the same kind of thing what you're talking about. There's just no one going through. So like, hey, what happens if we like let a polar bear and a donkey see each other for the first time? And
Oh my God, what did happen?
they just looked at each other and went
Moved
about
on.
their day. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Sounds
pretty much
about
what
right.
you'd expect to happen, but it was still kind of cute. It's like
Aw.
zookeeper having a good time, but I missed the shy eel saga.
People will understand. There'll be people out there.
Yeah.
I don't know where I even learned that, but yeah.
Yeah,
Hashtag eel
no,
gay.
I don't think I was ever going to be preparing a vegan diet at home, and I didn't want to say anything negative about the Gawler Foundation. I don't think I would have sort of leapt at exploring a new vegan diet when you got home for you in terms of building up your strength. So,
Well, it wasn't new because I had been doing it for 6 months prior to the surgery. But yeah, no, it wasn't incidentally what I felt like. And actually, as a nutritionist, I found it really fascinating that my body just craved meat and potatoes. That's like building blocks, just carbohydrate and protein. That's what we need. We need a lot of it. We need it now. I didn't feel like eating anything else. I mean, I didn't feel like eating much anyway because I was so sick, but there's another cat. but yeah, when I did, it was like, just give me meat. And I mean, the listeners don't know, but I was vegetarian for a very long time, many years when I was younger, and then vegan leading up to the surgery. So it's not like me to just be like, give me a bowl of mince, fill me with potatoes. Well, I mean, I do like potatoes.
Who doesn't?
So thank you, Mum, for watching all those hours of reality TV with me. Couldn't have done it without you, walking me to the bathroom and basically just being my nurse. Love you muchly.
No problem at all.
Ben, sorry.
Well,
Yeah, don't interrupt my compliment.
no, it's very odd to talk about it 10 years down the road and to hear you laughing and making jokes about it.
Yeah.
Because we were all traumatized, you know, and so, you know, the fact that we didn't talk about it amongst ourselves was also about protection. But this processing that you have done, I think is really valuable, you know. And
do you think it's valuable for you guys as well, or mostly just is it re-traumatizing for you guys?
I mean, I'm learning stuff. That's something.
Yeah. No, I think looking back, it's a different lens than when you're in the midst of a middle of pain. I was listening to a radio this morning where somebody was talking about their grief in relation to family trauma. And it was so obvious that it was still too fresh, you know. It was not the time to be picking over the coals of what had happened. Then there was still a lot of pain and a lot of bitterness. And I think waiting a while, it doesn't diminish the experience and the pain that you had, but it allows you to let 33-year-old Kirsty, you know, give words.
Yeah.
Give words to your experience, because the words help you think things through.
Yeah. And that's what I found most beneficial about writing this book, is because previously I was writing a blog, and that's when people started saying you should write a book. And
you were like, you don't tell me what to do.
And then 7 years later, here we are. But that does sound like me. I don't like being told what to do. But yeah, it was so different to writing a blog or writing a diary, because all of a sudden I was having to look at it through the perspective of the reader, and I don't want it to just be like some sad sack story that's, you know, really unbearable to listen to or read. And obviously there are very sad moments, but I hope there are several moments of levity, or enough anyway, to keep people reading it and enjoying it and getting out of it enough. And it's not just all like a woe is me sob story, because that's not my intention.
And it isn't I'm a survivor story either.
Well, no.
And that's usually the other way that things go.
I don't know that I am.
So no, it has a very, very different voice.
Thank you.
On the note of like, you know, how you're processing and how soon to like you revisit these topics. I remember one year I didn't message you on the anniversary of your surgery, which I at that point didn't realize was an anniversary we were celebrating. And
It's a good one.
so
yes.
like I got an angry group text message that was like, I can't believe none of you recognize that it's been like 4 years since my surgery today, or something like that. And I was like, shit, like, okay, I guess we're doing this now. So I
Put it in your iCal.
Yeah, I sent you a very apologetic meme that I had created of some South Park character that I can't remember the exact details, but I'm like, hopefully this smooths things over. And then, yeah, from then on, it's like every year in my calendar, I'm like, hey, it's been 15 years, congrats. Do you still want me to send those text messages, or are you like, why is Ben doing this?
I sort of do think like, why is he doing this? But I also
Because
like
you asked me. Not only asked, you got angry when I didn't do it.
Do the 5 and 10 year anniversaries, okay?
I do appreciate it. It does make me, because I'm at the point now where I don't, like, I have it in my iCal, but it's not like a big thing for me anymore.
Okay. That's what I was curious about. Then there was also
That's a
like a
good one.
year, I'm going to say like 2 years ago, where
Okay.
you sent a message like, hey, it's been like 13 years since the surgery or something. And it was like
It's
a
been
month.
11. But
Whatever, like the number isn't important.
Yeah.
It was
Well.
the fact that it was a month early. And I'm
Oh,
like,
that's true.
I'm like,
That's true.
oh, no, it has not. Because I've got this shit down in my calendar and I know exactly how many.
there you go. Growth. See, memory does fade.
Yeah.
The human brain. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. And B, I just wanted to also thank you. So there we
So
go.
I was also there.
You were also here. No, yeah, I really appreciate you both doing this with me, and perhaps we will chat again in the future.
And just in case we don't, like one last thing that you brought up in the previous podcast.
Yeah.
Is you were like, oh, Ben, you're like 36 years old. You're practically 40. What the fuck? I'm not, 36 is not practically 40.
It's close enough.
Also, we're not that far apart in age. So if I'm practically 40, you're practically 40.
Well, Mum did just say that I was 33, and I'm going to own that because it's not my age.
I assume she was talking about these were your thoughts a year ago.
I will say on that, I have to make
Guilty as charged.
I have to make an apology to all the listeners because I did get several angry messages like, you just called me old.
Yeah, good.
I'm in my 40s. I'm on death's door, according to you.
Keep sending those in.
So I am sorry, everybody. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry for my existence. I apologize.
That's all I asked for.
Okay, bye.
Gotta say, it's a little hard listening back to that. We recorded that, I guess, a year ago, and I'm doing a re-release of the pod. Some of you may have listened to this previously, but since I've got new equipment and the sound quality is better, I have been releasing things again nice and fresh, although this is an old recording. And so listening back to me calling my brother old at 36 is extremely depressing now that I am 36. Time is a cruel mistress. Anyway, thank you for listening. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Please tell your friends, like and subscribe, all of that stuff. And if you're interested in getting your own copy of the book, head to kirstenmoore.com.au or head down to the show notes and there will be links to guide you everywhere you need to go. You can also follow us on Instagram at Gotta Glitter Memoir. I'll catch you next time. Bye.